Napoleon Bonaparte, the rise and fall of the emperor. The thunder of cannon shook the battlefield as smoke curled into the gray morning sky. At the center of the chaos, a small man on a white horse raised his sword, his sharp eyes sweeping across the lines of soldiers who awaited his command. "Soldiers," he cried, "from the top of those pyramids, 40 centuries look down upon you." The men roared in response. It was Napoleon Bonaparte, a Corsican outsider who had risen to become the master of Europe. To some, he was a genius, the man who reshaped warfare and built a modern state. To others, he was a tyrant, consumed by ambition, whose lust for glory left Europe drenched in blood. His story is one of meteoric rise, brilliance in battle, and a downfall as dramatic as his ascent. Napoleon was born on August 15, 1769, in Ajaccio, Corsica, just months after the island had been annexed by France. He came from a family of minor nobility, neither rich nor poor, but fiercely proud. His father, Carlo Bonaparte, supported the French rulers for political advantage, while his mother, Letizia, instilled discipline and resilience in her children. From the beginning, Napoleon stood apart. He was small, shy, and spoke French with a thick Corsican accent. Sent to mainland France for schooling, he was ridiculed by wealthier classmates for his humble background. Yet, in these early humiliations, he developed the ambition and determination that would fuel his life. Napoleon excelled in mathematics and military studies. At the military academy in Paris, he mastered artillery expertise that would later revolutionize his campaigns. By the time he was 16, he was already a second lieutenant in the French army. When the French Revolution erupted in 1789, Napoleon was a young officer watching a society tear itself apart. The monarchy fell, and chaos reigned. For an ambitious soldier, it was a time of both danger and opportunity. Napoleon's first taste of fame came in 1793, during the siege of Toulon, where royalists had invited the British fleet into the harbor. Napoleon, then a captain, devised a daring artillery strategy that forced the British to withdraw. His success earned him promotion to brigadier general at just 24 years old. He quickly proved himself not just a skilled tactician but a man who inspired loyalty. Soldiers followed him not because of noble birth but because he shared their hardships, marching alongside them, eating their rations, and remembering their names. In 1796, Napoleon married Josephine de Beauharnais, a widow with ties to influential politicians. Their relationship was complicated. Josephine was glamorous but unfaithful, yet the marriage propelled Napoleon further into Parisian society. That same year, Napoleon was given command of the French army of Italy. His troops were hungry and poorly supplied, but he electrified them with fiery speeches. "Soldiers, you are naked and ill-fed. I will lead you into the most fertile plains in the world. There you will find honor, glory, and riches." Against all odds, he led them to a string of victories over Austrian forces, transforming himself into a national hero. Ambition drove Napoleon beyond France's borders. In 1798, he launched an expedition to Egypt, aiming to cut Britain's trade route to India and expand French influence. The campaign produced both triumph and disaster. At the Battle of the Pyramids, Napoleon's disciplined troops crushed the Mamluk cavalry, and he declared to his soldiers, "From the top of those pyramids, 40 centuries look down upon you." Yet his fleet was destroyed by Admiral Nelson at the Battle of the Nile, trapping his army. Still, the expedition had lasting influence. Scholars he brought along discovered the Rosetta Stone, unlocking the secrets of ancient Egyptian writing. But militarily, Napoleon slipped back to France, leaving his army behind. By 1799, France was exhausted. The revolution had left the nation unstable, with weak governments rising and falling. Sensing opportunity, Napoleon seized power. In November 1799, during the coup of 18 Brumaire, Napoleon marched soldiers into the legislature, dispersing deputies and establishing the consulate with himself as first consul. At just 30 years old, he was effectively the ruler of France. Napoleon moved swiftly to consolidate power. He reformed the legal system, creating the Napoleonic Code, which established principles of equality before the law, property rights, and secular authority ideas that would influence Europe for generations. He centralized government, modernized education, and reached a peace with the Catholic Church. But peace abroad was fleeting. Napoleon defeated Austria at Marengo, 1800, forcing a new European coalition to bow to French dominance. In 1804, he crowned himself Emperor of the French in a lavish ceremony at Notre Dame, snatching the crown from the Pope's hands to place it on his own head, a gesture that declared his power came from himself, not the Church. Over the next decade, Napoleon became the most feared man in Europe. His armies swept across the continent, defeating coalition after coalition. At Austerlitz, 1805, often called his greatest victory, Napoleon crushed the combined forces of Austria and Russia in a brilliant display of strategy. At Jena Auerstedt, 1806, he humbled Prussia, and by 1807, at Friedland, he forced Russia into an uneasy alliance. By 1810, Napoleon controlled most of Europe, installing relatives and loyal generals as kings in Spain, Naples, and Holland. His continental system sought to strangle Britain economically, though it also disrupted Europe's trade and bred resentment. For all his brilliance, Napoleon's ambition blinded him. The Peninsular War in Spain turned into a costly quagmire, as guerrilla fighters, supported by the British, bled French forces dry. Worse still was the invasion of Russia in 1812. Napoleon led an army of over 600,000 men, largest Europe had ever seen, into the vast Russian steppes. At first, victories came easily, but the Russians retreated, burning their cities and fields. By the time Napoleon reached Moscow, the city was in flames, offering no shelter. Winter descended, and the retreat became a nightmare. Hunger, frostbite, and constant attacks decimated his army. Fewer than 100,000 men returned. The once invincible emperor was weakened, his aura of destiny shattered. Sensing weakness, Europe united. In 1813, Napoleon was defeated at the Battle of Leipzig, the Battle of Nations. By 1814, Allied forces marched into Paris. Forced to abdicate, Napoleon was exiled to the island of Elba in the Mediterranean. Yet the story was not over. In 1815, Napoleon escaped Elba, landing in France with a handful of supporters. As he marched toward Paris, soldiers sent to arrest him instead rallied to his side. For 100 days, he regained power, determined to reclaim his empire. The final showdown came at Waterloo on June 18, 1815. Facing the Duke of Wellington and the Prussian army, Napoleon fought fiercely but was ultimately overwhelmed. His dream of European domination ended on a muddy Belgian field. This time, there would be no second chance. Napoleon was exiled to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic, far from Europe. There, under constant British guard, he lived out his final years, writing memoirs and dictating his version of history, portraying himself as a man of destiny undone by jealous kings. On May 5, 1821, Napoleon Bonaparte died at the age of 51, likely from stomach cancer. His last words reportedly were, "France, the army, head of the army, Josephine." Napoleon's legacy remains complex. He was a conqueror whose wars caused the deaths of millions, yet he also modernized laws, administration, and education. He spread revolutionary principles across Europe, dismantling feudal structures and challenging monarchies. In France, he is remembered as both hero and tyrant. His tomb in Paris's Les Invalides draws visitors from around the world, a symbol of the man who rose from obscurity on a small island to shape the destiny of a continent. Napoleon once said, "Great ambition is the passion of a great character." Those endowed with it may perform very good or very bad acts. All depends on the principles which direct them. His own life proved this truth. From Corsican outsider to emperor, Napoleon embodied genius, ambition, and hubris. He gave France glory but also grief, reshaped Europe but sowed endless wars, built a code of laws but chased a crown of empire. His rise was meteoric, his fall spectacular, but his shadow still stretches across history. He remains the eternal paradox, the soldier who crowned himself emperor, the revolutionary who became an autocrat, the man who conquered Europe but could not conquer himself.